Okay, we're going to finish up with Aztecs today. So, lesson three of Aztecs. Um, we're going to find out. We start off with we talked about the other day that Aztecs were really fierce whenever they went to go take over new lands. They went out and kind of beat people up and attacked them, and warfare was just part of their lives. That's why whenever we talked about the boys went off, a lot of their schooling was learned how to become a warrior. So they were trained really to be great warriors by only the age of 15. You can see that right now. And they were feared in battle. So whenever they would come in and take over a place, if uh, if if they came in to take over some area and the people didn't want to and they wanted to fight, they would kill everybody in the village. Like even people who weren't fighting, they would come in there and kill everybody. And then any warriors that were left over, they would take them back as a prisoner of war and they would use them as slaves. And then they would also use them in human sacrifices. So when they came in and took over a place, you better just put your hands up and say, we'll join the Aztecs. Because if you didn't, they were going to kill you one way or the other, either kill you there or throw you, excuse me, into a human sacrifice somewhere. Eventually, their empire fell. So they were out there. They had an emperor that came in named Montezuma. You're going to hear about him later on in history as you get into high school a little bit more. But he was this powerful emperor that came in, and as he was taking over places, he would demand more and more of a tribute. Remember, we learned tribute in the last section that was an offering of food and gifts and things like that, but his tributes got more and more demanding until people were like, you know what? We said that we would join you. Now we don't want to join you. You're getting so greedy. So come try and get your tribute. You come in here and we're going to take you down. And so uh, the Aztec people that they had taken over were starting to rebel, and people were getting mad and saying we can't afford that tribute. It's kind of a tribute's kind of like a tax. Imagine if your parents were paying a tax, which we do all the time, and then all of a sudden um, the leader says you must pay even a bigger tax and a bigger tax and a bigger tax until finally it's a tax that nobody can even pay. Well, that's kind of what happened here with the Aztec Empire. Eventually, the tax got too big, the tribute was too big, and they couldn't even stand it anymore. Well, that started to bring their downfall down because people started to rebel against Montezuma, and then eventually Cortez came in. He was a Spanish explorer, and he was looking for gold and glory for Spain and all kinds of new things. And he landed on the Aztecs' land, and Montezuma went to go meet with him. And Montezuma said, we don't want to have a battle. What can we do?" And eventually, Cortez said, "Well, come with us." And they took Montezuma as a prisoner of war and took him with him. And then they later, um, he was killed whenever they started fighting the Aztecs and the Spaniards. Well, just like what happened back in the Inca land, the Spaniards came in, they had guns, they had armor, they had um, thousands of troops, and you couldn't beat them up. And if they didn't get killed in war, they were killed by disease because there were people from Spain that came over and introduced all kinds of new germs to the Aztec people, and those germs eventually took them down. So people started fleeing the area. They either got killed in battle, they were ran off, or they became sick and died. Um, so, what cultural advances did the Aztecs make? Just like everybody else, they had a rich culture and they had advances in astronomy, where they looked up at the sky. And one of their big advances was the calendar, which we've already talked about, um, because they used that as far as religious ceremonies and they knew when to plant things and when to harvest things. Um, they had great temples, those some of which are still standing in around Mexico City, where their capital city of the capital T, was located. And then they had everyday objects like gold beads, pottery, stone urns, like vases and things like that. They had headdresses, sculptures, and jewelry made out of precious stones. So they were really good at making things like that. They also had a writing system. Um, but it did not represent sounds spoken in their native language. Instead, it was pictures and symbols called glyphs. We've talked about those already before. And glyphs were basically a symbol to represent words and ideas. So they had their book, their all their writings in a book called a codice, and each codex was made of a long sheet of bark or deer skin filled with colored pictures showing details of their life. So historians learned a lot about them just from the records that they had in their books. Their pictures were pretty easy to make out as to what they were talking about. So um, they had illustrated books like this too, so you can see what their stuff looked like. Um, they would actually draw pictures out which looked kind of like a conversation, so you could kind of see what they were doing. So this must have been like an emperor and somebody coming and meeting with them. This person was talking and maybe writing something down. All of these things, these books were the codices, and this is what people kind of the historians have looked at and spent time trying to decipher what they were talking about. So um, that's pretty much it. So what it says right here is this picture to the right is each codex illustrates a scene from the Aztec life or contains official government records, and there were hundreds of these, and then they were destroyed, some of them. The panel on the right shows a funeral of a noble wrapped in cloth. Can we see a funeral of a noble wrapped in cloth? I guess that maybe I see it right here. Is this what it is? And his family prepares him for the afterlife. All right, so the advances in astronomy, so they were able to predict when to plant, when to harvest, when to move. They studied the sun, the stars, and the planets. They made their great calendar. The Aztecs had two calendars, one for farming and one for religious events. The farming calendar, of course, let them know when to plant things, and the religious calendar was used for ceremonies and things like that. The Aztec calendar was made out of stone, and they dug it up in Mexico City in 1790, and it had information about the months of the years as well as their sun god. Um, it doesn't say that their calendar was as accurate as the Mayans, but it must have been accurate enough to know when to plant things and harvest things. And this is what their calendar looked like right here. It was a huge calendar, 12 feet wide, and weighed 25 tons. So they carved it in to stone, and it must have been displayed for everybody to see. So that's it for lesson 3. The next one after lesson 3, we'll do kind of what do you call it, Aztec review again. We'll go over everything, and then we're going to look forward to a project of the Mayans, the Incas, and the Aztecs coming up here real soon. All right, guys, take care. Make sure that you are keeping up with your work, because once you fall behind, it's hard to catch back up. So I've talked to a few of us about that already. So most people are saying that it takes, anywhere from 15 to 25 minutes to do these assignments. So if you're finding yourself taking a lot longer than that, you might want to take a look at it or email me, see if there's something that I can do about it. So I'm here to help you. And also tune in to the 1 o'clock Zooms. I have a 1 o'clock Zoom for red day, and I have a 1 o'clock Zoom for white day. I'm on there every day, red or white, and we have kids that are coming in there religiously and asking questions and getting their work done right alongside me. So I'm happy to do that. Tune in at 1 o'clock. I'll help you out. All right, guys, take care. Be safe. Be well. I miss you.